Folks, we need to get into that MARITime because we already had the primed Mary for that Christ session in the right hand, and that number of Christ consciousness is 9. Well, the 4, 5 equals the 9, and that 1147 is before you, and the 747, Joseph, Robin, Netta, Biden has already been before you, and Batman, Robin, is now as Trump, and that Nashville and those little things all sparked a tune in 2020. I've been following this Batman in the cave and the guano and the different things like that, as that cannabis was grown with that guano back in the day, and they brought in a batshit shortage or whatever they said, but either way. So the primed Mary on the donkey's back with the Joe. We've been checking out in the DC's dark as we got the money being stripped away, and the little mirrors and reflecting sights on the ATM and the banks being closed and such, as the snap on that neck in a way is being shown for that hill session, as the Doge and the Dragon and all these things are coming into play, and you're staring at, oh, we're going in that Dust Bowl, because that east wing and such on that Dragon's been taken out, and kind of can't see what's going on in a way, and that's where Trump is over there with Japan, the Red Sun, and the animatronics, as far as playing out in the robot edition, in that spirit of Halloween and Halloween and the Bahala for that Cash Paytail, and the Moonlight for the Justin Sun, and all those things for the Moon Pay, and what we've been seeing with the Trump and the WLFL, and then the Florida with Iran doing the cash payments for the gold and silver and such. So all these things are going into a nice little thing, and then Trump doing a birth, basically John the Baptist, the Wild Times, the Honey, the Low Cuss, the Cuss, that MARITime. So primary, John, cousins, Elizabeth, then Elizabeth to the Bethlehem, and then that's where Trump on Truth Social is starting to do the betting on the predictions and whatever on one level. And then the paradise and such is being mentioned with the Rose Garden and the ballroom and those things, and this is the ball dropping, and the Green Day and whatever else. So it's also where you got the Jamaica with the Bob Marley and the Hurricane and Abel and all that, as that Croptober has been before you, and then the drying and curing and the burping of the jars, and the Kings of that golf game, the Gulf game for the Gulf of America, tying in all the things we kind of talked about in the past. Okay, so him doing the missile launch, the test missile launch, and now Trump doing the test nukes or whatever, and being over there in Japan. All these things are being played out, folks, as that Phantom Sub and the Red October and all those things, and stacks as November as a September, and the Roman calendar is Octo the 8th, and we've seen these different 8s and such, and then the Fed with the feeding and the SNAP and the welfare. So the White Horse Rider's been before you, the welfare for the Pale Horse Rider, and then the Death Star was being shown, as far as AI imaging with the DC White House with the rebuild and such. So that galactic talk empire and all those things that are kind of laying out before you. So the Gabriel, the gay is the GA, the Georgia AI, and all that stuff. This is where the sign of his coming, the second coming, the cousins, the G or G, the virgin birth per se, that Gabriel, not knowing who the dad is or the father. This kind of things that we'd be seeing as we've seen these stories wrapped up in the Bible and that script for the world stage in different ways, shapes, and forms. We'd be seeing this like put on a bright light spectrum. The next year, 2, 3, 4 years or whatever. But the political world stage or whatever is where Don is doing this, where America nationalism, all the Christian nationalism, all these things are playing a role into different roles, boundaries, and limitations, and where one's going into this old capitalistic system, which is a glorified slave system, and you're going and doing work, picking cotton basically for your money, which is 75% linen, and that 75% water that covers the earth, and all those things that's tied to your money, and your currency, which is tied to the flood waters, and those tears is coming, the speedo, which is tied to your ice age, and all those things that were shown. But so the John, the wild times, and the flip-flops, and seems as far as Back to the Future Part 2 and 3, because Biff Tannen, which is Biden and Trump, all these things, this three-eye atlas is tied to that almanac in one way. The almanac is also tied to the rigged gambling and the cheetahs and such on those African plains with Simba and Scar. And one thing would be Trump is Simba or Mufasa or whatever. He'd be Mufasa in one way, and then Simba's coming up, and then Scar's there, and all these little plays. But I'll do another thing about the gambling session as far as that spectrum that we're shown in Back to the Future too, because some of these things have been tracking and putting it all together as been in this 89 and watching this burn behind the scenes and such. The burn behind the scenes is where the world's switching over to the BRICS, and they got out the petrodollar during that Green Day concert 1-1, and then they did a little time travel mechanism where we didn't feel it quite yet and all those things, and now we're back in that 55, and the Melania's 55 clock, the Melania for the Doge, and all those things went in as the eclipse session, whatever. But either way, so Trump giving the Korean eclipse necklace with the stars is one spectrum. After he went and met with the Japanese lady who likes heavy metal, that's also a dark white light that's being brought through the woman clothed in the sun. It's the red sun for the red dawn, and the red dawn for the coming over the hill, and all those little things ring bells as far as the connection points on Hillary and Don or Bill and these 79-year-olds that could be hidden brothers, stepsisters, or half-brother sisters or whatever in these political parties and these events where one's going. Oh man, might be getting too deep here. The Hebron with the John the Baptist, the HEB, that's part of the snap. The snap is part of the neck for the butcher and the baker. The butcher, and the shares, the goddess of the pop. We've been seeing this Coca-Cola and the sugar and all that stuff, the sugar, the mono and all that kind of thing. And we exchange white blood cells through kissing, and white blood cells is what they want for the immune, for that plasma, the sun blast, and all those other little things for that kissing booth. And we may see an energetic exchange of human fluids for the purpose of re-energizing the earth and to work health and whatever else in a different way. And this is where things have been mixed up and backwards, and we're using the so-called sex and energies or whatever in the wrong way. And this is all part of that transformation of one to the other, and where we're told like people were naked in garden and Eden or whatever. This is where that old Eden is going there, but the naked Eden that's been placed since the 70s, 60s or whatever that's opened up, is where it keeps going, where the women are basically walking around naked, covered up with the spandex clothing and whatever else, and then they bend, it's the wrong brand, they bend over too much, you see right through it, or, I mean, it's just a progression of these things where we're all naked and we're actually using, and this is where we see this whatever, where you might need to, go get those person's fluids for an exchange of whatever, and you might have something through the mouth, you might have something through the ass, or you might have something through the whole body experience, or whatever kind of thing is going on that's needed for the seeds of man to grow inside other man, as we're just like a mycorrhiza, fungi, and all those other things in one level. But since things are contaminated, we got to clean up the system first before we can be that fungi, and we got to get that mushroom effect growing up and keep all those things going on. But so this MARITime that we see, the water, the cussing, it's where we see these different F-bombs being thrown out there or whatever. This is the 3 scores and 6. The 6 is the 6th letter, the F. But the MARITime is tied to your Venezuela, your Colombia, your China, the drugs or whatever. And then also when America went over to Afghanistan, they basically took control of the opium and been pumping it full of it or whatever. So this is basically the capstone of who's pushing out all these things. So, or as far as that fentanyl and opiate crisis and Oxycontin crisis, all those, and the Oxycontin for the dollar bills and all those things. So that opium is being placed as that Haron, and that Hebron and whatever else is hatching. All these things, everything is built upon these days, but you have to have a light source here in order to create a legend to understand these things. And that's kind of where they're telling you that the Matrix is based on a sushi recipe and some shit like that or whatever. But because once you get to a certain point, you can start seeing how everything is in this one area, okay? And this is what people call crazy or demons or whatever else, because they have been controlled by the rulers of darkness, the visible light, the states of matter, which is the lowest vibration, and this is the so-called Satan level. And in order to get to the higher states of consciousness, the higher vibration, where you see the face of God in the pineal and within you and all those other things, then that's where you get into the higher vibrational mode. And this is where the breathing and the detoxing and connecting with earth and all these things are teaching us in one level, but they teach it in some whacked out format or whatever, or they're saying that blending truths and whatever to where it keeps the people's power away from them. Okay, so the sons of the Most High and the famine and the time of famine, or these times of mafia, and that incarnation of Christ and the little horns with the cartels, and the cartels is tied to the 2 wings of the dragon. The tails of the dragon is not part of the wings, and one wing's been done, and then it's where the death spiral and the dragon starts eating itself and all those other things as it's trying to create a balance, because it can start, once it starts eating itself, or it can start doing a helicopter spin. The helicopter spin, and cops, bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? That's what we were all programmed back then. And now, since we've been in 20 years of the so-called real ID, and all these things are being turned off and then turned back on, people are gonna be like, what the did we just happen? And this ties us into the Simpsons movie, and we're gonna have to end it here and get into that Trappuccino in another video, which will be the next one since it's on my mind.